Greetings, dear listeners. Before I begin my story, I ask you to support this channel. Please subscribe and hit the like button. It helps stories like this be heard. And write in the comments what city or country you are listening from. It always warms my spirit to see how many of us there are. And now, enjoy the story.
Barefoot into Tomorrow, Part 1. The House with No Mercy. At 25, Maya Carter had already learned a painful truth most people never had to face. Home didn't always mean safe. The small, peeling house on Jefferson Street looked ordinary from the outside. White paint chipped by years of sun, a crooked mailbox leaning like it had given up trying. Neighbors passed by without a second glance, unaware that inside those walls, silence was louder than screams. Maya stood in the narrow kitchen, staring at a crack in the wall that ran from the ceiling down to the light switch. She had memorized every inch of that crack. On days like this, it helped her dissociate, helped her disappear without actually leaving. She hadn't finished high school, not because she didn't want to, but because life didn't wait for her to catch up. Her mother, Darlene, sat at the small table, cigarette burning between her fingers, eyes sharp and restless. Across from her stood Maya's older sister, Keisha, arms crossed, jaw tight with resentment. "You didn't even apply for the job right," Keisha snapped. Maya swallowed. "I did what they asked. I filled out the form." "You always mess things up," Darlene cut in, her voice cold. 25 years old and still useless." The word useless landed harder than a slap. Maya's hands trembled, but she kept them at her sides. She had learned that reacting only made things worse. "I'm trying," she said quietly. That was her mistake. Keisha moved first. 1 second she was standing there, the next her hand struck Maya's face, the sound sharp and final. Maya stumbled back, hitting the counter. Pain flared along her cheek, but she didn't cry. Crying made them angrier. "You think trying is enough?" Keisha yelled. "You eat our food, you waste space, you embarrass us." Darlene stood up slowly, eyes burning with something darker than anger, disappointment mixed with control. "You're lucky we even let you stay here. Other girls your age have careers, families. You have nothing." Maya felt something crack inside her, not her cheek, not her ribs, but something deeper, something that had been holding on out of habit rather than hope. Keisha shoved her again. "Say something." Maya shook her head. Another shove, harder this time. She hit the floor, the old linoleum cold against her palms. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure they could hear it. Darlene leaned down. "If you ever tell anyone about what happens in this house," she whispered, "I'll make sure they lock you up in a mental hospital. You hear me? I'll tell them you're unstable. They'll believe me." Maya did hear her. She always heard them. That was the moment something changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, terrifying realization. If she stayed, she wouldn't survive. Keisha turned away first, already bored. Darlene returned to her cigarette like nothing had happened. Maya pushed herself up slowly. She didn't go to her room. She went to the front door. Her heart raced so fast she felt dizzy. Her mind screamed that this was a mistake, that she had no money, no education, no plan, no shoes. But behind her was a house that had already broken her bones in ways no doctor could fix. She opened the door. The late afternoon air hit her face, warm and unfamiliar. Her feet touched the concrete porch, bare, exposed, real. "Maya!" Darlene shouted from inside. "Where do you think you're going?" Maya didn't answer. She stepped off the porch, and onto the sidewalk. The rough pavement burned her feet, but she welcomed the pain. It reminded her she was alive, that she was moving forward. She walked faster, then faster, until she was running, barefoot, bruised, unqualified for the world ahead of her, but free, for the first time in her life. Part 2. The night that taught her how to breathe. Maya didn't stop running until her lungs burned and her legs shook. When she finally slowed to a walk, the neighborhood had changed. The houses grew closer together, their porches sagging, lights flickering on as evening settled in. She had no idea how far she'd gone, only that the house on Jefferson Street was no longer behind her. She wrapped her arms around herself. That was when she noticed her feet. They were dirty now, small cuts forming along the soles, blood mixing with dust. Every step stung, but she welcomed it. Pain meant she was still here. Pain meant she hadn't imagined everything. The sun dipped low, painting the sky orange and purple, like the world was pretending nothing was wrong. Maya laughed softly, a short, broken sound. She had no phone. Keisha had smashed it months ago during an argument, and no one had bothered to replace it. No money either. Her mother kept everything for safekeeping that never seemed to include her. As darkness crept in, fear arrived with it. Not the fear of being caught and dragged back. That fear had lived in her bones for years. This was different. This was the fear of the unknown. Where do you go when you don't belong anywhere? She passed a closed laundromat, its windows dark, a bus stop with a torn bench and a faded city map. She sat down carefully, wincing as her feet touched the cold concrete. For the first time since she'd left, tears came. Not loud sobs, just quiet tears slipping down her cheeks, soaking into her collar. She pressed her hands to her face and let herself cry for the girl who had learned to be invisible to survive. "I'm sorry," she whispered to no one. "I didn't know how to be better." Time stretched, cars passed, no one looked at her twice. A man walked by and slowed. Maya's body went rigid instantly, every muscle screaming danger. She lowered her head, making herself small, but he kept walking. Her heart didn't slow down for a long time after. By the time night fully arrived, the temperature dropped. Goosebumps rose on her arms. She hugged her knees and tried to think. Shelters. She'd heard about shelters, but she didn't know where they were, didn't know if they'd believe her. Darlene's voice echoed in her head. "They'll think you're crazy." Maya stood again, ignoring the pain in her feet, and followed the streetlights. They felt like breadcrumbs, leading her somewhere, anywhere. Eventually, she reached the park. It wasn't much, a patch of grass, a broken swing set, a picnic table covered in graffiti. But it was quiet. Too quiet. She sat at the far end, close to a tree, pulling her knees to her chest. The ground was cold, but she was too tired to care. Sleep came in fragments. Every sound woke her, a dog barking, footsteps in the distance, the wind moving through leaves. Each time she flinched, heart racing, ready to run again. Sometime after midnight, she heard coughing. Her eyes flew open. A woman sat at the other end of the park bench she hadn't noticed before. Older, wrapped in layers, hair pulled back in a loose bun. "You don't have shoes," the woman said gently. Maya stiffened. "I'm fine." The woman nodded, like she'd expected that answer. "That's what we all say." Silence stretched between them. "My name's Renee," the woman said finally. "I don't bite, and if I did, I'd warn you first." Maya almost smiled. "I'm Maya." Renee looked at her feet again, then took off her own worn sneakers and set them on the ground between them. "They're size too big," she said, "but they'll keep the glass out." Maya stared. "I can't." "You can," Renee interrupted, "because tonight you need them more than I do." Maya hesitated, then slowly slid her feet into the shoes. Relief flooded her body so fast she nearly cried again. "Thank you," she whispered. Renee leaned back. "First night out?" Maya nodded. Renee didn't ask why. That meant more than any sympathy ever could. You'll want to head to the women's shelter on Pine Street in the morning, Renee said. They open intake at 7. Don't be late. What if they don't take me? Maya asked. They will, Renee said firmly. And if they don't, you keep going. You don't turn back. Maya swallowed. I don't have anything. No job, no education. Renee met her eyes. You have a pulse. That's enough to start. The words settled into Maya's chest, warm and unfamiliar. As dawn crept in, painting the sky pale gray, Maya realized something else too. She hadn't been hit. She hadn't been yelled at. She hadn't been threatened. She had survived her first night. Barefoot no longer, but still walking forward. Part 3. The Life She Chose. Morning came quietly. Maya followed the directions Renee had given her, each step steadier than the last. The borrowed sneakers slapped softly against the sidewalk as the city woke up around her. Coffee shops unlocking doors, buses groaning to life, people rushing towards somewhere they believed they belonged. She kept her head down until she reached Pine Street. The building didn't look special. Brick walls, a blue sign that read Women's Resource Center. No flowers, no promises, just a door. Maya stood outside it for a long moment. This was the hardest part, she realized. Not running, not surviving the night, not even the pain. This was the moment she had to ask for help. Her hand shook as she pushed the door open. Inside smelled like disinfectant and old coffee. A woman behind a desk looked up, eyes kind but tired in a way that came from caring too much for too long. Good morning, the woman said. How can I help you? Maya opened her mouth and froze. Darlene's voice echoed in her head. They'll think you're unstable. Keisha's voice followed. You're nothing. Maya swallowed and forced the words out anyway. I need a place to stay. The woman nodded, already reaching for a clipboard. Name? Maya Carter. Any ID? Maya shook her head, shame burning her cheeks. That's okay, the woman said gently. We'll figure it out. Those 4 words hit harder than any insult ever had. They led her into a small intake room. The questions were simple, but heavy. Age, education, family situation. When they asked about abuse, Maya hesitated, then nodded. No one raised their voice, no one threatened her, no one called her useless. A counselor named Miss Alvarez brought her a blanket and a cup of tea. You're safe here, she said. No one can take you back. Maya clutched the cup with both hands like it might disappear. For the first time in her life, she believed it. The shelter wasn't perfect. There were shared rooms, strict rules, and nights filled with other women's nightmares. But there was also structure, safety, a schedule that didn't revolve around fear. Weeks passed. Maya attended group meetings, mostly listening at first, hearing stories that sounded too familiar. Women who had been told they were worthless until they believed it. Slowly, she began to speak. She learned about GED programs, job readiness workshops, therapy sessions that taught her how to name what had been done to her, not as weakness, but as survival. One afternoon, Ms. Alvarez handed her a flyer. Community Center on Maple Avenue needs a receptionist, she said. Part-time, they train. I don't have experience, Maya said automatically. Ms. Alvarez smiled. You show up, you listen, you learn. That's experience. Maya applied. She got the job. Her first paycheck wasn't much, but she stared at it like it was proof that she existed outside her family's shadow. She opened her own bank account, bought herself shoes, brand new, nothing fancy, but hers. Months later, she stood in a borrowed cap and gown, GED certificate in her hands, tears blurring her vision. She wished, briefly, that someone from her old life could see her now. Then she let that wish go. 2 years later, Maya walked past Jefferson Street without stopping. The house looked smaller than she remembered. She didn't feel anger. She felt distance. Her life wasn't perfect. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some nights, the memories still came, but now she had tools, support, a future she was actively building. She worked full-time at the community center now, helping women fill out the same forms she once feared. She kept a pair of spare shoes in her desk drawer, just in case. Sometimes she thought about the girl who ran away without slippers, bruised, terrified, unqualified by the world's standards. She wished she could tell her something, that she had never been broken, that survival was a skill, that freedom begins the moment you choose yourself. Maya unlocked the center doors one morning and stepped inside, sunlight pouring in behind her. She smiled. She was no longer running. She was home.